The Chattanooga City Council is called to order for Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. I'd like to invite Councilwoman Jenny Burrs to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Yeah, move to agenda, please.
Okay. Council, can I get a motion on the minutes, please? Thank you. Minutes will stand without objection. Council, let's take a look at tonight's proposed agenda items. We do not have any ordinances on final reading or on first reading, so we just have resolutions tonight. I do intend to take several of these as a package. I will let you know my intent as we go, so please, if we have any that we need to pull, do hit your light. For council office, we have a resolution related to naming Cannon Avenue after Lehman Pierce, in the honor of the late Lehman Pierce, a great leader in our community. We have 4 items under economic development. 3 of them relate to Head Start leases across the county. We also have a conveyance of quitclaim deeds for properties that have been sold already through the delinquent tax sale. Does anyone have any questions or any objection to taking those 4 items as a package? Seeing none. Moving on to information technology, we have 2 items under IT. If you have a question, hit your light. I do intend to take those as a package. Thank you, council. We have an item H for the mayor's office. It's an appointment of Robin Derryberry to the Carter Street Corporation Board. We do have a city attorney item related to a de-annexation request. Okay, under Parks and Public Works, we have Parks and Outdoors, excuse me, we have 3 items I intend to take as a package. 2 are approvals to apply for and if awarded, accept grants. The 3rd is for a waiver of park rental fees, and there is a deposit required, as is our standard order of business. Any questions or concerns about taking those as a package? Hit your light. Seeing none, moving into Public Works, we have, I believe, 6 items under Public Works. If you have any questions or comments about those, please hit your light. All right. Wastewater, we have 1. I will be taking those as a package. Wastewater is a separate item. Let's see, Councilwoman Burrs.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman Hill. I do want to backtrack to the Parks and Outdoors. I do have a question about item L.
Okay.
I don't know who is here.
I don't have L in front of me.
And so this is the one waiving the fee for the Chattanooga Green for the 5K. I know when other events used either Ross's Landing or the Green, the deposit is there in case there's any damage. Mm-hmm. So how does that take care of any damage? Is there something in the language that says we'll waive the deposit, but if there's any damage, you will be responsible for it?
I don't know that I'd have to check to see, because I don't think so. I think that if we don't take the deposit, we don't compensate if there's.
This does not waive the deposit. It only waives the park rental fee.
Right.
It does
That's what I
require
thought this
a
one
deposit
was.
in the amount of.
Oh, sorry, I misread it. With a deposit in amount of $1,000.
Mm-hmm. And it's refundable deposit.
Okay, I misread it. My apologies. Okay, so we still do get the deposit. We're just waiving the rental fee.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you.
Look good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so council, we have taken a look at Public Works. We have taken a look at wastewater. We amazingly do not have any purchases tonight. I think that's happened maybe 4 times in my tenure here. So let us and the taxpayers of Chattanooga take a deep breath and say, thank you. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at not our purchases, but instead, we would look at our 2-week agenda, but we are going to be observing Veterans Day next week, so we don't have a 2-week agenda for next week. The council will not meet. And we do appreciate all of our veterans and the work that they've done on behalf of protecting our safety and our freedom here in America. Let's take a look at future considerations, please, council. Weston, would you please join us up here to speak briefly about the 2 items under finance related to the general obligation bonds?
Sure. Good afternoon. Weston Porter, CFO for C. These 2 resolutions are a part of our kind of standard process. Every 2 years, we go out and we issue bonds. The first resolution, the initial resolution, is to satisfy a legal requirement where we have to publicly notice for 20 days that the city is intending to sell bonds to allow time for public input. The second resolution is an authorizing resolution, which will be more detail, giving more information around the parameters of the bonds that are going to be sold. The $40 million is to cover projects that were approved in our last 2 budgets, so FY25 and FY26. This money is for projects approved in the capital budgets during that year, or those years.
Thank you very much. Councilman Elliott.
What is our bond to income ratio? Or how healthy are we in that aspect?
So we're,
Or debt to income ratio, rather?
I'd have to go back and double check it. It's around 5 to 6%, probably in the general fund.
Okay, and what does the comptroller want us?
They don't set a ratio that they require. Best practice is probably in the anywhere from 8 to 15%.
Okay, and I know a few years ago, we had a bond rating agency knock us down a little bit from one of those. Are we still at that AA, or have we regained back to our AAA status?
So Fitch did downgrade the city's bond rating in 2024 to a AA+, which is still a wonderful rating. The downgrade was based on some changes to their criteria. It wasn't really anything we did. It was just the way that they look at the city. They changed some of the things they looked at. They focused more strongly on kind of the economic impact, some things going on in the city, median household income, things like that. They placed more of an emphasis on some of those things, which just changed our rating. They did say that our financial resilience boosted, propped that up a little bit, but still it was a AA+, and it would still be that, I imagine. But we'll go through that process in December where we meet with the rating agencies. S&P was still AAA. So again, we'll go through the rating agency discussion in December with both of them. We go kind of through this back and forth, but their criteria hasn't changed, and so I would imagine it'd be around the same.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Council, do we have any other questions about the bond issue? All right, seeing none. Any other questions on future considerations, council?
I do, Chairwoman.
Okay, Councilman Clark.
Sorry. It's the question about our interlocal agreement with the City of Red Bank. Are you familiar?
So that would be the Parks Department?
Yeah.
item?
Sorry.
April, would you join us up here, please?
Hold on, I gotta get to where it is.
This is Parks 10A2. April, a resolution to enter into an interlocal agreement with the City of Red Bank to define shared responsibilities, cooperative efforts related to stewardship of streams.
There's no financial going back between us and Red Bank. It's just that this, I believe it borders, it's City of Chattanooga and the border of Red Bank, and that we both will maintain our sides of Stringers Ridge.
Oh, okay, so it's not like we're maintaining a park in the City of Red Bank because.
No, sir.
Okay. Well, it said interlocal, so I mean, I'm assuming that there was a fiduciary note on it that would cause this to be a resolution? Or,
Not yet.
There's trails that go back and forth between Red Bank and the city of Chattanooga going up to Springers Ridge. It's just a mutual
Gotcha.
responsibility.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
That was it.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, great. Council, do we have any other questions on future considerations? Okay, seeing none. We have a couple of committees today. We've got lots to talk about, so Councilman Elliott.
These aren't on, before we switch to committees, I do want to highlight this. Council, I will be introducing 2 resolutions at next council meeting. The first is going to be instructing the administration to pause all water shutoffs due to stormwater fees until SNAP benefits are funded once more by the federal government. or the federal government opens again or at a date in the future. This is a measure to try to put as least amount of burden on our citizens as possible to give them some breathing room during this difficult time. The second resolution is going to be encouraging EPB. While we do not directly oversee the operations, they are still an extension of the city, encouraging EPB to explore all options possible to try to protect our communities through whatever programs and means they may have at their disposal, including but not necessarily excluding the possibility of pausing shutoffs as well. And so that's just a simple encouragement for them to try to see if they can do their part to help our residents until these SNAP benefits are lifted.
Thank you, Councilman. So if you'll send that language to the clerk, she'll get it on the agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
And we'll have language to review in advance of the meeting on 11/18.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, council. This afternoon, we have two committees. We have an Economic Development Committee and a Planning and Zoning Committee. So to begin, I will hand the chair over to Chairperson Elliott.
Can I get a motion on minutes?
So moved.
All right. We have our Economic Development Committee hearing today. We're going to be discussing with the great Sharita Allen, discussing some updates on the Northgate Mall TIF, as well as a presentation on our neighborhood corridors plan that the administration has been working on. And then finally, we're going to have a presentation from RiverCity. Before we start, I want to highlight, because this has been everybody's favorite topic lately, the TIF is just simply, this TIF conversation today is simply an update as to what has happened at the previous public hearing meeting. We're going to have another committee hearing on the 18th, where we're going to be discussing the sales tax initiative that goes into it. That at that time will give us more time for a robust conversation and deliberation around this TIF. But today, Sharita is going to be giving us an update as to what happened at the previous meeting. So Sharita, would you like to begin?
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you. Sharita Allen, Senior Advisor for Economic and Workforce Development. I just want to follow up on an email that I sent to Council late yesterday afternoon. That was a follow-up to the Industrial Development Board's public hearing that's required as part of our policies in approving a TIF. And so the IDB unanimously approved the resolution of the IDB approving the Economic Impact Plan and the Northgate Mall Infrastructure Project, and authorizing submission of the plan to the City Council. It is proposed to come to the City Council December 2nd. I have asked the head of the Economic Development Committee if he's willing to host an Economic Development Committee meeting, not a hearing, a meeting on November 18th to allow us to revisit both the Economic Impact Plan and the proposed sales tax agreement, considering it will have been roughly six weeks between when the council first heard the item through the application review committee and the IDB, and then it coming back to the council for final vote. So if that's the pleasure of the board, we'd like to request to have that November 18th public. It's just a committee hearing.
It's already scheduled. Y'all
Okay,
excuse me, I get hearing and committee confused.
Correct. So it's a
yes.
committee meeting and not a public hearing. And so prior to the vote yesterday with the Industrial Development Board, the IDB, there was a public hearing. I did send along with the email a link to all of the dates, the timestamps within the public hearing, so that you'll be able to go back and see where Attorney Mark Mamontoff explains the but-for analysis. There's also a timestamp for when the developer CBL makes an updated presentation. And then there are also timestamps for the citizen comments, both at the beginning of the meeting and then at the end of the public hearing, and then the public hearing closed. And so on the but-for analysis, I do want to highlight that it was completed as we promised the board that would be done before the public hearing. The report confirmed what staff believes, which is that the project needs an incentive to be successful. That is part of the but-for analysis that was also attached and sent to this board. The amount of the incentive used in the report provides a baseline amount along with an up-to range. It's worth noting that the IDB did not deliberate the range of the incentive. They simply reviewed all of the information, deliberated, asked questions, and then moved the item forward. They left the deliberation piece to the council. That's what will happen on December 2nd. Because this type of but-for modeling is designed for vertical project and not purely public infrastructure, the report's more speculative than is typical for a but-for analysis. And so staff still stands behind the original request for a waiver. So as you're looking at the numbers, they're a little difficult to read because they are speculative. They're not based on vertical construction, which provides this ratio against which you then calculate, do you need the infrastructure? This is an infrastructure-only TIF, and so that's why the modeling that was used is a little different, because it's infrastructure-only TIF, but the modeling was for vertical construction paying for infrastructure. And then the next items coming up are the council considering the economic impact plan on Tuesday, December 2nd, along with the sales agreement. The sales agreement has not been drafted. It is being drafted now. So once a public hearing was approved and IDB made the determination to move it forward, the attorneys started working on that yesterday. And so that will come forward to this council. We would like to have that before the committee hearing on November 18th, so there's time to review it. And so there will be discussion on the 18th and then vote on December 2nd. And that would be both for the economic impact plan and the associated sales agreement, that sales tax agreement that would go with that. So that's just high-level update on the Northgate TIF. I'm happy to take a couple of quick questions, and then I'll move into our next short presentation.
Council, are there any questions about the public hearing involving the TIF? All right, seeing none, Sharita, the floor is yours. We're going to start with our retail corridor update.
Terrific. So during the budgeting process, council approved roughly $1.3 million for a business development program. In addition, there was $585,000 that C&E returned to the city for small business development. Those funds will tie directly into an HRNA study that was commissioned by the city, the Chamber of Commerce, RiverCity, and Chat Tourism that was related towards the types of incentives that Chattanooga should be using moving forward. And so keep in mind, those monies have been set aside. They are for small business development. We have not developed those programs, and this will be one of those programs that we would come back to this council to develop legislation around how those funds will be spent. And so if you look at this particular, the second one on the bottom, that is the HRNA report. It talks about economic development incentives that that the city should be using but currently is not. The first one talks about unlocking currently vacant and underutilized downtown sites. RiverCity will speak directly to that in the next presentation, and that is part of their appropriation that they're seeking. And then the third one is activating commercial corridors to support local entrepreneurs and build local wealth. That is the retail corridor strategy program on which I'm presenting today. And so the report highlights what other cities have done successfully. You've got an example from Memphis and an example from Detroit. It talks about the importance of building out a toolkit of programs, best practices, data, and policies to drive investment in commercial corridors. And then if you look at the very bottom, it talks about the roles of the different players and how to make this happen. And so in this particular study, it talks about the city in partnership with the chamber and community organizations, and it talks about providing technical support, technical assistance and support, and what that might look like in a Chattanooga setting would be helping companies secure business licenses, registering to do business with the city, or setting up an business improvement district. When it talks about possibly contributing public funding to support leasing storefronts, that public funding could look like increasing existing funding for grant programs or sunsetting some of the existing programs and starting new programs up. It could be providing additional funding for the existing loan programs as well, or it could be the creation of new incentives like a grocery store TIF, which is currently being used in Memphis. So again, it's looking at contributing public funding, but figuring out what that funding looks like for Chattanooga as it relates to neighborhood business corridors. And the last piece is publicizing the program to help attract a customer base. So this is the marketing piece. So at the end of it, there's a marketing program that markets these identified corridors citywide to help direct vehicle traffic, foot traffic, to get more customers shopping at those local retail neighborhood strip centers. And it's not strip centers, it's sort of the neighborhood retail corridors. And so again, that's looking at that, helping attract customers piece. And so where we are now, short presentation, 6 slides, we're at the assess phase. So the first we want to do is assess all the corridors. We've met with several of the council members, and we've identified their corridors of focus. And so what that looks like is working with our fantastic GIS team, they've given us lots of data, and looking at what's going on in each of the different corridors, and then figuring out what does success look like for each corridor. And so, for instance, here's an example of the Highway 58, a piece of the corridor on Highway 58, and the kind of data that we're able to pull. And so that data ranges from occupancy, vacancy, vehicle traffic, it's sales data, it's ownership, it's city-owned parcels. It's looking at all of those different pieces on the corridors. And then what we're looking to do is create a dashboard to track what are the metrics that we're looking at on an individual corridor, and then how do we start to benchmark and measure against that? I'll give you an example. If we're looking at Glass Street, sales revenues might not be a big target for a Glass Street, but vacant storefronts might be. So that if you've got 7 empty storefronts, then the focus of the plan for that corridor is how to fill those storefronts. If there are 2 city-owned properties that are on Glass Street, part of that strategy is disposition of those properties that are on Glass Street. You have a different corridor that might have lots of storefront, local flavor retail. How do you preserve that foundation of storefront? You might have a different corridor where it's full, but you've got antiquated buildings, the buildings need rehab, they need facade improvements, those things. So that's one of the first things we're doing, grabbing all of that data and then putting together the plan of what should be the metrics to track moving forward. And then next to the last slide, we're getting close. So we're still in the assess phase. We're assessing it. We're meeting with local stakeholders, and I think we're fortunate in that some of the corridors are more advanced and ahead than others, so that, for instance, if you're looking at Rossville Boulevard, they already have some activity. They have players on the ground that are already doing some things. So while we're doing our assessment, we're also already meeting with those stakeholders. And then the next piece we'll be getting with our internal departments to figure out, is there a piece of the plan that could be implemented by our internal departments, recognizing the funds that were approved could also be used not just for programming for the businesses, but also programming for internal departments to deliver services to some of these corridors where those services are not currently in their budget. So it might be a corridor that needs sidewalks improved, or it might need extra trees trimmed, or outside furnishing. That's currently not in the budget for any of these corridors, but these funds could be directed to those departments to make those improvements for these particular corridors. And then the last piece is just sort of the next step, and that's the assist step. This is typically, we've assessed it, and then the assist step is where we go in and we start meeting with the economic development staff in partnership with all of our current economic development partners, is the assist staff, where we start reaching out to those local entrepreneurs to figure out what do they need. Do they need grants? Does somebody need a range hood? Does somebody need roll-down doors? What does that assistance look like? And then how do we start to program that using our existing programs on the ground where we already have some funding available, versus the next step, which is how do we start creating new legislation for the different corridors moving forward? So that's kind of it. And then the final step will be marketing the corridors, but obviously we don't want to market the corridors to drive business to them if the local businesses are not ready to accept that new business. And so that's kind of where we are on the retail corridor strategy program. That's my last slide. And I'll take questions before we bring Sarah up, and she will speak to the downtown corridor specifically because that has been carved out from the citywide program.
So council, I see Councilman Clark, your light's on. Go ahead. This is going to be on Sharita's presentation on the neighborhood corridors plan. Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Councilman Elliott. I'd like for you to go back and talk to me a little bit more about the $500,000 that was transferred or given back to the city by CNE. And I think I may have misheard you, but is it being reinvested into what entrepreneur development programs, and have they already been established?
They have not been established. Those funds are simply being held for small business programs.
as it relates to these corridors? Like how,
It has not been determined because there's not a program. So when the funds came back, we restricted those funds for small business efforts, and those have not been defined.
so when will we define it?
We're waiting for, at one point, the council, when the council first came on board, the council was going to create work groups, and there was one around small businesses. If that's no longer the case, then we're free to create a program and bring that program to you outside of
Is
whatever
that the case?
the small
Council,
work
can
group.
someone give me,
Yeah, we talked about this in forms of economic development. Let's do this, because this is the first that I've heard that we were supposed to be deciding where these funds go. And that's fine, we can decide where funds go. Let's have an offline conversation and bring back some options before this council regarding the parameters of these funds, if that works.
And
There's
if
gonna be
I-
an option to tap into the working groups, which just have not been, we hadn't exercised this one yet in particular, as long as we can legally do it. I see
As long as
Phil,
it is in a public meeting, yes, you can.
yes, I see Phil staring, holding back my head. As long as we can legally do it in a public hearing, we'll do that. Any concerns on that one,
are you asking me?
as a whole?
Yeah, so once the money has been defined and allocated, we did have a discussion about this when it first was brought to our attention when we voted to redirect that funding. And I know some people misunderstood how that money, what it was used for. So that's why I'm interested in this and making sure that it is invested in some of the most underserved corridors where there's a need for economic development, because every corridor has some development issues. But if you recall, when we voted to transfer the money, it was for entrepreneur development in areas that might have been distressed in some of those corridors. So I guess I'm trying to figure out what is the link between, because you mentioned it, is there a link to the development of these corridors to that funding? Or do we not know yet because it's not defined?
There is a link. It is to be determined based on the small working group. So that, for instance, the small working groups were never defined. The small business working group was never defined. What is the goal of the small business working group? Is it to create legislation? Is it to direct
I don't know.
funding?
But what I'm saying, we are a working group, and we voted to reallocate those funds. And this group, I would like for us to maybe to have a presentation or recommendation, because we discussed this.
We did
about-
discuss this.
And I know.
And we've been waiting for council to provide guidance on small business development through the working group, which is not,
Okay.
my understanding is that it's not
Let's get our working
met.
groups working, right? Like,
You got it, Councilman?
I yield.
Okay. Councilwoman Burrs.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to digest what we were just talking about. So, Sharita, the second step, could you go back to the slide?
Sure.
Where you listed the steps? Meeting with local stakeholders. Tell me a little bit more about that, and that's the next step, correct?
That's the next step. And so
Okay.
what that looks like is, for instance, staff is able to work with GIS and pull all the associated data. We're able to analyze the data. But when it comes to developing a plan for implementation, the community needs to play a role in that. So that, for instance, we could decide what we wanted to happen on Rossville Boulevard, but there are already active participants in an active association that's doing the work. And so cities should partner with that existing organization and/or organizations to determine what are their priorities, what are the next steps, what does that look like, and then how do we start to implement through the lens of this particular program?
Okay.
Because there are funds available for it.
Okay, so are you looking for, who initiates that process?
Currently, staff is initiating that process.
So initiates the process to
Through
have these
the-
meetings?
correct,
with
through the elected
stakeholders?
officials.
Okay, so for example, staff might meet with Midtown Connect, which is an already established organization addressing these kinds of needs?
Correct.
Okay, and what's the timeline for that?
It is currently ongoing, so we're in the process of having those meetings now. And it would also include neighborhood associations. So community development is an internal department, and they will be part of this process moving forward as well.
Okay, well, I would love to be as part of the conversation because we've got, at least in District 6, or not in District 6, but Midtown Connect serves Districts 5, 6, and 9 because we look at the Brainerd Road Corridor, Lee Highway area. And we also have another group of neighbors that have gotten together twice now to talk about the Brainerd Road Corridor. So it would be great to bring all of that together, and I'm just trying to figure out when do we start doing that? Because I think there's lots of people that are really excited about getting some attention to the Brainerd Road Corridor. So we're already in those conversations, and from the neighbor side, getting educated. We had a great meeting last night. We had one a month ago. I know CARTA's a big part of that too, as far as the Brainerd Road Corridor. So I'm ready to help initiate that next meeting or get together.
Perfect, I will
At least
reach
for my
out.
district, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
You good,
thanks.
Councilwoman?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Chairwoman Hill, excuse me.
So I pulled up the document that we had created about working groups. I think this council's been very busy with budget for much longer than is typical. And so I think working groups, I mean, I know the budget working group has met in October, but other working groups, I think, are getting their feet underneath them. We do have one that we created, Economic Revitalization and Neglected Community Corridors. And Councilwoman Burrs had volunteered to lead that, and Councilpersons Clark and Elliott had said they definitely wanted to participate. The two primary goals for that were to identify priority corridors and support asset-based revitalization, and to find solutions to recruit and support the success of grocery stores and neighborhood food deserts. Those are the two primary things. So I think as work groups, you will always find me say that I think thoughtful, well-considered solutions are often the best, and I think that's what Sharita is looking for, the opportunity to plug in with council, working group, and have those conversations to then bring to the council as a whole, as opposed to, we've got money, let's just say we're gonna write a check to fill in the blank, right?
Correct.
So you're doing work, the council will be doing work, and so those will come forward. The other related to economic development specifically was an infrastructure funding working group that Councilman Elliott has volunteered to lead, and that's one that I'm keen to participate in, and it had some different goals. But these work groups were all things that we know require complex, longer-term work and solutions, and so that's why we wanted to have something that was outside of our standard committee of just ongoing reports about work that's happening. So that's where that stands. And Rakita's gotten hers going.
Yes.
And I'm sure some of the rest of us will. I know code enforcement was one that I said I would be bringing us together about, and so I will do that. And Sharita is ready and ready to go as soon as we are.
Looking forward to it, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
You good, Chairwoman?
I sure am. Thank you.
Councilman Clark?
Thank you. Sharita, a couple follow-up questions. Does retail, in this retail study, right, which is what we're talking about as far as corridor revitalization, does retail, that term, does that include grocery?
It does.
Okay, and so are there components of this that specifically research what retail as it relates to grocery is incorporated in corridor revitalization, but the policy piece of it, I guess, would that be work or recommendations done in a work group or from your team? Like, what are how is that incorporated into, how is grocery incorporated into this retail, or how will it be incorporated into this?
It's currently incorporated to the extent that you've asked for grocery along your
In my
corridors. And
corridors.
so that has been a part of it. To the extent that others have identified grocery as part of their focus, we would include that as well. And we do have one other district that
Oh, would that be the
mentioned
Great
grocery.
District A?
Absolutely.
Right, because we need grocery stores over there, okay?
Absolutely.
My last follow-up question, can we add a corridor to this?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'd like to add a corridor. I'd like to add the Shallifer Road, Moore Road industrial area where the Walmart is, where there's also acres of unused land across the street from the gas station. I like to identify that as a light industrial corridor. I don't know what the zoning is on it, but I know there's some zoning requests on that.
Correct.
But I know we have been having discussions about the Brainerd Road development, which is wonderful, but we have some inner opportunities in that intersection to continue the development that Walmart abandoned that area. So I'd like to have that reconsidered as an area or a corridor. It's kind of like to be added to the study for that.
We heard you the first time you
first time?
mentioned that, so we do have that in. It's not a typical corridor,
I just
but we
didn't see
did
it on the
add that.
map, so that's why.
No, in the essence of time, we did not include the 12 corridors that have been identified.
Okay, and that's why I brought it up, because I didn't see
So
it.
we can do that in a future meeting when we have a little more time.
Just don't forget about us, because I'm going to remind you every week if I have to.
We have it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Elliott.
You good, Councilman?
No, but I owe you back to the chair.
Thank you, Sherrod. Well, there were no more questions. We'll move on to RiverCity and Sarah Matz's presentation on their storefront initiative.
Hi, good afternoon, Council. Thank you for allowing me to present. I'm Sarah Matson with RiverCity Company, and today I'm going to give you a high-level overview of RiverCity Company and our new retail recruitment program. RiverCity Company is a 501c3 nonprofit founded in 1986 to reinvest in, revitalize, and redevelop downtown Chattanooga. Our mission is to serve a specific footprint of downtown. Downtown serves as the economic engine of the city as a whole and the region as a whole. Although downtown only makes up 4% of the city of Chattanooga geographically, it accounts for 13% of tax revenue. We are governed by a board of directors, including the city and county mayors and the chairs of city council and county commission. And an important note is that RiverCity Company is fully self-funded for our operations. So any grant monies that we get do not go towards operations or payroll. However, we do work with our private, public, and philanthropic partners for specific projects and programs like the retail recruitment program. We're really excited to say that in the last year, we've had over 28 new businesses open in downtown. There have been some business closings, but we've had a net gain of businesses. So we think this is fantastic, and we really want to encourage everyone to continue to support our local entrepreneurs. We've had some really fantastic businesses open, and that's a lot to be excited about. However, we do know we have some challenges with vacant and underutilized storefronts. Some of the common reasons for this is tenant improvements and build-out is costly. It's getting more expensive every day. Outdated spaces are harder for landlords to rent, and it's harder for tenants to lease these spaces when they're not turnkey, and there's a lot of development that has to be done to make it a nice storefront. Also, current design misses the market, meaning a storefront might be currently designed as an office, but would be better utilized as a food and beverage or coffee shop, so it would have to be completely redeveloped for that reuse. Also, access to capital is and has always been a very difficult barrier for a lot of small businesses to open. It's very difficult for a new business to access funds, to get loans or grants to be able to put into revitalizing or building out a storefront. And lastly, the lack of tools and resources to support renovations. So entrepreneurs and property owners need help navigating the zoning and permitting regulations, as well as small business support and access to funding. So what are other cities doing? Facade and storefront improvement programs are a very common tool that other cities and economic development agencies are using across the country. RiverCity spent many months researching, visiting peer cities. We reached out to organizations like National League of Cities and LISC and International Downtown Association, and really identified a lot of best practices. And we really found that most urban cores have some sort of improvement or facade improvement, storefront improvement program. So we really were able to, we did city visits to kind of learn what other cities are doing well and what's not working to build out a framework that would work for Chattanooga. And with that, we're excited to launch our new Scenic Storefronts Building Improvement Program. And again, based on best practices, this program will provide a one-to-one matching reimbursable grant to property owners or business owners in the downtown core. It'll be for permanent interior and exterior improvements, which could include flooring, ADA accessible bathrooms, facades, windows, doors, grease traps. And importantly, RiverCity Company will provide technical assistance to help property owners and business owners navigate the regulatory side of things, as well as providing professional design guidance to make sure that we're getting beautiful storefronts downtown. RiverCity Company will manage the entire back-end administrative process of the program. Business owners or property owners can apply on our website online. RiverCity Company staff and our review committee will then provide technical assistance and go back and forth with the applicant to agree on a well-designed project. And once that's agreed on and we've been able to connect them with the right providers, architects, designers, contractors, then we will approve their application. And then once the work is completed, RiverCity Company will distribute reimbursements for their project. In addition to this Scenic Storefront program, we are also going to execute our retail strategy. So first, we are going to do a market analysis where we will pull data to really understand customer demographics, retail leakage, market gaps, really figure out who's coming downtown and where are they spending their money. We'll also do a retail assessment where we will catalog and analyze all vacant storefronts and also underutilized properties that could be storefronts. Using that data, we'll develop a retail strategy, and this will really be like a matchmaking process where we will identify specific retailers or genres of retail that we want on specific corridors or even on specific blocks. And then we will execute our business attraction strategy. We will work with a professional retail strategist consultant who already has relationships with regional and national retailers. They will reach out directly in their network to help us recruit retailers into these spaces. And at the same time, RiverCity Company staff will work with our local network and organizations like Urban League and Kitchen Incubator of Chattanooga to recruit local businesses to open storefronts downtown, with the idea that we end up with a beautiful, healthy, and diverse mix of businesses in downtown. And that's all I have. Happy to take questions.
All right, council, do we have any questions? Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Councilman Elliott. Quick question about the matching grants. Funding. Is that used with the city funding that we currently have allocated in the budget for RiverCity?
Correct. That's what those funds will be used
And
for.
so, but the matching funds will be used for facade improvements for the property owner of that building. They'll match it, but then we turn around and reimburse them. Could you go back to that slide where it shows the process? Thank you. So you match it, the work is complete, but then it's reimbursed. Could you help clarify?
Yes, sir.
I'm not
No,
understanding.
it's a little confusing. So typically with these types of grants, if it's a $40,000 project, then the business owner or property owner will contribute $20,000 and we will reimburse $20,000. So they're putting in $20,000 and we're putting in $20,000, but we don't reimburse it until the work is complete. So they do have to front the $40,000, and when the work's complete, we reimburse them $20,000.
Okay. So it's not a matching grant if there's a reimbursement component to it because we're giving it back to them.
We're matching the dollar amount. So if they put in $5,000, we'll give them $5,000. If they put in $10,000, we give them $10,000. Up to a certain to be determined maximum.
I'm just trying to make sure the math is mathing because when I'm thinking about a matching grant, there's skin in the game from what they contribute and we match it. But if we're giving it back, And maybe some of my council colleagues could help me on this.
Yeah, they're fronting the money, and we're paying back half of it to them.
Okay. But when I'm hearing matching and someone, if they're putting the entire amount in, correct?
To start.
And then they're getting it back.
They're getting half of
Half
it
of it back.
reimbursed.
Okay.
Yes, but they have to meet that 50% requirement to get the reimbursement.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's what I needed clarity on. They're getting half of it back.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And the reimbursement, it just wasn't very clear in the process. So my other question that I have relates to something that we did in the affordable housing pilot, where we recognize that people who may vacate different buildings is because of the rate of the lease amount, because of inflation and whatnot. We're matching people to make improvements to downtown facilities, but is that necessarily helping people lease the buildings? So we're helping them do the facade, right? So what is the matching component to actually help people stay in the space that we just paid to give them a facelift? Are there any pilot programs that helps tenants, like an affordable housing pilot, but maybe an affordable leasing pilot, that RiverCity could pair with this? Because I feel like the only people that's benefiting from this would be property owners.
Yeah.
And not the people that we actually need in the retail space, which could be small business entrepreneurial development that needs to be in that space.
Yeah, I understand your question. We don't currently have any kind of rent subsidy programs, and in our research, we found that a lot of cities that have tried to do that usually ends up getting made up for in the lease agreement, so the property owners catch on to it and they start making up for that and charging more. And so it is something we could look at in the future, but the idea is that if you have a beautiful, well-designed storefront, it's going to help you with your marketing and get more foot traffic and have better business. So that's generally what the best practice and the research shows. So that's what this program will provide. Down the road, we'd love to explore some rent subsidy options potentially, but we don't have that planned at the moment.
One last question, follow-up. I would love to see that, because for minority entrepreneurs who struggle leasing and putting their buildings, I don't represent the downtown district, but I'm not against the downtown district. But I may have entrepreneurs who live in my district who maybe could have access to this money for entrepreneur development, where they could, Chattanoogans, right, who live outside of downtown with a business can actually afford to lease the building downtown.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be worthwhile for RiverCity to explore that. I'd be interested in, and I know we like to look at what other cities are doing, that's great, but our city is special in the fact that we need equity as far as people having access to the downtown space and being able to expand their businesses down there.
Yeah.
And so I am interested in that, and I would be curious to see if you could work with our economists in the Economic Development Department to provide that data, because I am very serious about all access to downtown for everyone.
Yeah, as
To
am
have the
I.
ability to lease, rent, do whatever they need to do downtown, that opportunity is there and that there are no barriers.
Yeah.
And I can see you guys out of my peripheral. So I'd be curious to have that data, if you don't mind.
I agree, and I see it as two equally difficult but separate problems.
Thank you.
Like, it's difficult to start the business, and it's difficult to cash
To
flow the
maintain.
business throughout. So this is solving one piece of the problem, and we do look forward to help working
As a
with your team to
supplement
come up
to-
with
to-
solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, those are my only input as far as to this process, to make sure there's some skin in the game for people to have opportunity to come in downtown and, utilize those tax dollars to be there, because, the taxpayers are paying for this facade uplift. I think we need to make sure there's no barriers to access for that.
Yeah, of course, we're trying to reduce the barriers.
That's what I love to hear. Thank you. Are you back?
Last time?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Clark. Anybody else? Okay, I have a couple questions. Sarah, I love the idea of us supporting our retail space downtown. Strong downtown supports the whole city. But what are some of the means for us to support them in their endeavors? Pre-COVID, we had a ton of folks working in office spaces downtown, where they, on lunches or before they went home, they would invest in these shops, in these centers. We've seen a stark decline in that. But also, if you look at some of your most successful corridors or most successful commercial areas, oftentimes they are supported by buffering residential communities that can support them. Look at Main Street, the Councilwoman Dotley's part of Main Street in particular, where you have very successful corridor, but it is draped by areas that have disposable incomes that can invest in these areas. They're walkable, they can invest their monies. We don't have a lot of housing downtown. So what is the plan to also support these retail spaces once we stand them up? Because what I would hate to happen is to set folks up for failure and we put these resources out there and then, 5 years from now, their doors are closed. And we don't see this investment have the long-term impact we're hoping it to truly have. So what are some other complementary aspects do we have to support this?
Yeah, so RiverCity works every day to create programs and events to try to draw people from other districts to downtown and to help those businesses. A longer term, we do have an economic development strategy that we are working on to help incentivize and attract developers to continue to develop downtown so that we get more housing. And we do have quite a lot of housing already on the pipeline for downtown. So it's really kind of a chicken and egg. We need both at the same time. We need the retailers to get the residents, and we need the residents to support the retailers. So as long as we're tackling it all kind of from every angle at the same time, and I think we're on the right track to do that.
Good.
And also for everyone, shop local, support your local entrepreneurs.
If you could, I would love for you guys to follow up with that. If you guys could either send that out, or maybe this is another opportunity for you to educate the public as a whole as to what are some of those things coming down the pipeline. And also, what are some things that the city can do to help this, right? Yeah. Because like I said, this is a gap we need to fill. Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Chairman. Sarah, I do have one follow-up question. In the process, work's completed, they get the reimbursement, then what's the time frame for follow-up? I mean, it's kind of along the same lines. We have other programs where they have to meet certain requirements long-term in order to get the value out of the investment. So what's that next piece? How does RiverCity follow that business through to make sure that, kind of along the same lines of successful, but we've reimbursed them half of their investment. So how do you measure that it was successful?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in measuring the success. So we will do a business census semi-annually or annually to track certain metrics to see what before and after and to see the health of their business throughout.
Have you all done something, forgive my ignorance, but have you all done something similar to this in the past?
Yes, we, RiverCity Company did a facade grant program on MLK.
Okay.
And on Main Street.
And then, do you have any statistics? What are your statistics, of how those businesses did with those grants? It might be a good comparison for us to say, wow, what the investment that, for lack of a better term, the city made for these businesses, they're still in business 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
Or they're, what have been their successes?
I'm sure we had that. I'll have to get that for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, council, any more questions? All right, Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time, and I look forward to some of those follow-ups to see how things are going in the future. And with that, that will be all for our Economic Development Committee meeting, and I'll turn it over to Chairwoman Burrs for planning.
Do a little musical chairs here. All right, thank you, council. I'd like to bring to order the Planning and Zoning Committee for today. May I get an approval of the minutes from our last meeting? Okay, I see that we have a motion to approve and a proper second, so the minutes pass. if you all had a chance to look at the staff notes for this week, we have a very short agenda for our meeting, and it just involves District 8 and District 9. So I'll ask the council representatives, and also Karen, if she'd like to come forward, what presentations you would like to hear today. Great, District 8, District 9, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
You
you do want your
mine.
presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and that's the presentation for the one on Curtis Street, for the, just make sure I'm on the right one. So this is this case is unusual in the sense that the applicant requested the TRN3 zone. Staff recommended the TRN2 zone. Planning Commission recommended the TRN2 zone. But at Planning Commission, the applicant confirmed that he still wanted the TRN3 zone. So I'm going through that because I would expect that the applicant, perhaps at council at November 18th meeting, would again request a different zone. So this is 2802 Curtis Street. The rezoning is to construct an additional duplex on a lot to have 4 total units. There is an existing duplex, and we'll see a picture of that. There is some zoning history in the area. There's 2 rezonings, one to the northeast, one immediately south of the site to the RN13 zone. That allowed those larger urban lots to be split into 2 smaller lots as long as they had a minimum lot size of 3,000 square feet. And then one of those has conditions. It's generally single-unit residential, vacant property surrounding this. Brown's Alley is just behind. It runs to the back of the lot, which is on the right-hand side, and Brown's Alley looks like a street, but it is an alley. It's just looks a little bit unusual, and that's it's a little bit wider. That's one factor in the staff recommendation. So the site's legally non-conforming because it's a 2-unit dwelling in a RN15 zone. That's an R1 zone with that 5,000 square foot minimum lot size designation. And the applicant wants to build an additional duplex behind this existing duplex. So again, the kind of the looking at the TRN2 and the TRN3 zone, the TRN3 zone, the applicant is requesting because the 2 zones are very similar. The TRN2 zone stops at 6 units. So the whole idea is that we're kind of building these zones. The TRN2 zone allows 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 units. The TRN3 jumps to full multi-unit dwellings, so you can have 7+ units. Another item that's into play here, in particular in this gentleman's circumstance, is that if you have a single unit, 2-unit, 3, or 4-unit dwelling, that's a principal building on a lot. You can only have one of those. And that is really part of that kind of that missing middle spectrum and compatibility, and we are looking at this. But another requirement is there can only be one principal building on a lot. So in this gentleman's case, he's proposing the item on the right, which is I have a duplex. He wants to build another duplex. Those are going to be 2 principal units on the site. So that's kicking in this TRN3 zone. So it's a little complex, and we spent a lot of time talking about it as staff. It is trying to reinforce compatible missing middle housing, but this is one we're doing a little bit more work on because in this case, we're finding the zone is not compatible, but we understand the reasoning for his recommendation, or excuse me, his request. And so staff's recommendation was concerns that the TRN3 zone permits high-density multi-unit residential housing at 50 feet. The proposed zone's not compatible with the plan recommendations, so staff thought the TRN2, which still would allow 4 units on the site, wants to do 4 units, then the idea there is could add on to the existing duplex. The TRN2 zone would allow that. There was an opposition at Planning Commission. Planning Commission had a similar discussion and found the TRN2 zone is more appropriate at this location. But again, so it comes with a Planning Commission recommendation to approve the TRN2 zone. And we haven't had additional discussion with the applicant, but that might be a discussion next on the 18th.
Yeah, Councilwoman Knoll, Vice Chair Knoll?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Madam Chair. So is the applicant here today? They're not, okay. So this, I would definitely have to have definitely some more conversation on.
Okay.
2 duplexes and another behind there. No, I can tell you that right off the top.
Okay, I'll have the.
That's not gonna happen.
I'll have the applicant contact you, and we have some, that was one of the discussions about, just among staff, if Brown's Alley instead was a road, that might make some sense, but it looks like a road, but it is an alley.
Yeah, no,
But I will have the applicant call you.
okay,
Hey,
thank you.
Karen, will you go back to his diagram? Because we had a lot of discussion about, if there was some confusion, I remember at
Yes.
Planning Commission.
He is.
So the diagram on the left is what exists now, and the piece on the right is what he wants to do, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And from the conversation I remember to the Planning Commission, the TRN 2 would allow him to do another building, but it would have to be attached to the
That's
existing
correct.
building. It couldn't be a separate structure.
That's right, and that would
Okay.
allow the 4 units
Okay.
under the TRN2.
And he wasn't interested in doing that because it would disrupt the existing, well, one of the reasons, the existing tenants.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion? Okay, thank you, Karen.
Case 152 did have opposition, and this is for a multi-story, multi-unit apartment complex or housing complex on Wilcox. The opposition was more concerned about the demolition process and possible asbestos exposure during that process. So I believe the Planning Commission Chair was trying to kind of pull out some additional concerns related to the development, but that seemed to be the primary concern. So Planning Commission did spend a little time talking about permitting and how some of that would be addressed through permitting. So this does come with a recommendation. This is the old church site from Wilcox and then from Roanoke. It is already a non-residential property, already has larger buildings on the site. Staff and Planning Commission both recommended a condition of 4 stories or 50 feet, and that is what the applicant is proposing. But just because there's a lot of 1- and 2-story buildings immediately adjacent to it, this was a recommended condition.
Vice Chair Knoll?
Yeah, this particular site, until I can see in front of me and in writing and in a bag as to them having the ability to be able to pull this off, I'm not going to be on board with this either.
Okay.
I'm sick of the back and forth with them and meeting with them, and they come up with one thing, and then they say they're gonna do this, and then they're gonna do that, and then they never follow through with it. I'm like done with that. So, unless they can show me, I will never go along with this either. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion on this particular case? Okay, and then we have one matter in District 9. Councilman, you would like to hear the presentation? Okay, thank you.
So this is the Southern Spear site at 1305 Anderson Avenue. This is kind of the backside of the site. Holtz Claw is running north-south to the west. We've had several zoning cases. We've also had several mandatory referrals through here. But the 2019 rezoning put in place 2 conditions, which were residential townhomes only and height limited to no more than 35 feet for structures within 85 feet of the South Greenwood right-of-way. So a larger portion than the site shown has the conditions of residential townhouse use only. The site's under construction, as you know. There's townhomes immediately along South Greenwood between the site and this. Staff found the request is compatible with adjacent land uses and development forms. The site's being converted from industrial to mixed use, so it felt it's more compatible with the area than that former industrial zone in use. And the 2019 townhouse condition will remain in effect for properties that front on South Greenwood Avenue. So staff felt that lifting the condition acts as a buffer and will allow additional development of the site. There was no opposition, and Planning Commission had similar findings, but just to note that the height condition will remain in effect for the site.
Councilman Elliott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a sponsor, is the person here? Okay, if you're listening, listen well. This site, this happened well before I got into council, and this has been lingering for some time. And it has been a thorn in the side of Highland Park. It is an eyesore, and we're looking for something to be done with it. I am glad that you are now looking to move forward with it. But I need you to come talk to me so we can actually see what is going on, because this doesn't tell me much. And we also need some assurances that you're actually going to develop this property instead of it just sitting there. We're not going to keep going back and forth, rezoning stuff, lifting conditions, and nothing ever happens. You know, honestly, and I've said this earlier in strategic planning, we talked about this with code enforcement. There are several eyesores throughout my district that I am hoping in the next coming months that we can hopefully give some more teeth to code enforcement to pursue. And so I think this is one that I hope we can find a way to develop well. And it means it makes sense for this landowner, but also the neighborhood. Otherwise, there may be other things that come down the pipe. So Karen, if you have this applicant, please reach out to me.
I will.
We won't be going forward until we have a conversation, and we have a conversation with the community.
And I'll send them the link to the live stream too.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other comments about this particular matter? Okay, I see no other lights. Karen, you had a couple of zoning code issues.
We have
to go over?
2 text amendments, and then we've kind of separated these from the flood text amendments. And so the 2 text amendments, again, these are cleanup items. The first one is more, we have not had an experience where this is a problem. Just in talking about when a right-of-way is abandoned, it doesn't say specifically in the new ordinance that the zoning is following that center line of the former right-of-way. So it was just, we've not run into this being an issue, but just to avoid it ever being an issue, wanted to be really clear that when a right-of-way is abandoned, there is zoning in place on that property and being clear what that zoning is. The second item, we had a zoning case because we're using our zones more. We had a zoning case for a commercial neighborhood zone, and we were looking at the CN and the CNT. And these allow live work. So I could, one of the permitted uses, I can live on the bottom, I have a business on the bottom floor, I can live at the top, but it doesn't allow that to be horizontal. So I could not have my business in the front of a building and then have my residence in the back or vice versa, which I think defeated the purpose of this. So this is intending just to confirm that single unit attached and detached residential units can be part of that neighborhood commercial mix. I think it was a little bit of an oversight, or maybe the way the definition was done. So this is just confirming that that is a permitted use and would make up that neighborhood kind of commercial feel. And this is probably also already something that's in place, and so this is just reaffirming that that's part of that, that mix in that zone.
Okay. I see no lights. Are there any questions for Karen about these 2 changes? Seeing none. Any other questions for Karen while we have her up here? Otherwise, I won't belabor our recess. Yes.
We do have the flood to cover real quickly. And
Oh,
that's when
sorry, we do have the flood
Bill Gore
regulation
and
changes.
Darren
Yes,
Gill
thank
could
you.
sit in the
Yeah,
LDO
my
team.
apologies. Go ahead. Did you, 1 minute, Karen, did
I
you
don't
have
think
another
I actually
question?
officially congratulated you on your appointment. So congratulations.
Thank you. There's several steps to go through, but I appreciate
Yes,
that.
I
Thank you.
probably did it, so congratulations.
you.
I'm glad you got the job.
And I'll turn it over. This is, the LDO took the lead on this. We're just assisting since it's in zoning. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Darian Gilkinson. I'm the Assistant Director of Land Use Development Services in the LDO, which is just a fancy thing for all things signs and zoning related within the LDO. So with that being said, a part of my team is Ken Martin, who is our floodplain coordinator. So he and I have done a massive amount of work. FEMA, he's going to go into this, but FEMA is requiring us to update our regulations with the new maps. Again, he's going to go into it and tell you a little bit more about that. But I also wanted to introduce Jinx Parker. He is on Jeremy Swilley's team. He is our floodplain manager. And so these two together have just been an excellent team and done really great work for our floodplain and are going to continue to do that. So I'll turn it over to Ken to talk about the updates that were made. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah. We can.
Okay, thank you. I want to start by thanking City Councilman Ron Elliott and Dennis Clark, City Councilman Dennis Clark, for attending the open house we had yesterday. It was, I feel, a huge success. We had a pretty good turnout. Over 100 residents came out with questions and got answers to the questions regarding the floodplain changes. So without further ado, I'm gonna get into a little bit of the changes with you guys today. So the recommendation for approval by Planning Commission for flood regulation changes. On November the 28th, we'll be receiving new floodplain maps, new firm panels. We currently have about 62 firm panels that are effective. All 62 of those are being updated, and with the addition of one firm panel, giving us a total of 63. These firm panels are received by FEMA, and with that, they also issued sent us a floodplain ordinance update that is going to include some of the current language changes and some additional definitions to be adopted into our new or proposed floodplain ordinance. Us failing to adopt a new ordinance will result in us having a non-compliant status with the NFIP program, the National Flood Insurance Program. And the result of that would be a loss of subsidized federal-backed flood insurance for residences, as well as us not being afforded federal funding in case of a disaster. So if we were to incur a disaster like what happened on August the 12th, we wouldn't get assistance from FEMA if we weren't able to adopt a new floodplain ordinance that is in compliance with what FEMA has issued. We have an additional 35 definitions that are going to be updated. These are some of the major update changes that are required by FEMA. Like I mentioned earlier, the firm panels, the national firm panels are also being updated. And we're going to make a couple of updates to how we describe the flood zones. So currently, right now, it's a little bit hard to interpolate or understand. So we're making some changes to some of the language to make it more comprehensible for residents when they're reading the code to understand, okay, what flood zone am I in, how is that designated, things of that nature. And everything else is just minor updates and changes to rephrasing.
And just to be clear, this was required by FEMA. So when you're saying that we made these updates, this was us just taking the words from FEMA and putting it into our ordinance the way that we have it set up now. So none of these changes that he has just talked about, so the updated definitions, kind of fleshing out the flood zones a little bit more, were done by us directly. This is something that was brought down from FEMA.
Sorry if I didn't articulate that. I thought I did.
We understood.
Thank you. So additional staff updates, these are the updates that aren't required by FEMA, but are more so recommendations for staff to make, like I said earlier, we want to make the ordinance a little bit more comprehensible and digestible so people understand and there's a little more clarity. So right now, our floodway use definition or some of the changes for the floodway use is we're wanting to allow for limited recreational activity such as river walks and bank stabilization, critical infrastructure, things of that nature happening within the floodway. Right now, it's not required by FEMA, but we want to align with our Chattanooga status as a national park city. So we want to remain in alliance with that. We want our floodway to incorporate recreational use and people being able to come out and utilize those open spaces. Why are we updating the floodplain ordinance?
The first one's a typo.
Okay. Why are we updating our floodplain ordinance? We want to maintain consistency, stability. We want to reduce risk, and we also want to make sure we're taking into the forefront the community's well-being and welfare. We want to do this by regulation, and we still want to actively promote innovative growth. We aren't trying to impede progress by no means. The current language doesn't allow for anything to be built within the floodway, which is in alliance with current practices. So we want all of this to be inclusive and comprehensible, and our ordinance to reflect what's currently being done. Floodway uses, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we want to allow things like recreational use, airport landing strips, critical infrastructure and public open spaces, roads, driveways, railroads, bridges, and culverts. All of those things will still be inclusive as activities or uses to be able to be conducted within the floodway. Public infrastructure like utility facilities, water-oriented industries and adjacent water courses, those things are still going to be included. Grading, filling, and land alteration, those things will be limited to shoreline and bank stabilization projects only. So with that, if you have any questions.
Okay, I have Councilman Clark, followed by Chairwoman Hill, followed by Councilman Elliott. All right, Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. First of all, thank you for the amazing presentation last night. It was an honor for Councilman Elliott and I to be there to participate in there, to be educated about it. So thank you. And it's also refreshing to see different faces at council making presentations on behalf of our department. So thank you, Bill, and your team for doing that. I know it's intimidating to come up here. I know some of us think we bite. Councilwoman Marvin does bite, but I know that the nerves can be settling, but I just want to compliment you and say thank you for your presentation.
That's how live gets though.
Yeah. Councilwoman, I have the floor. Quick question about the levy that runs in District 5. Were any of the FEMA recommended regulations, I know this is a recommendation for new floodplains, okay? But were there any recommendations from FEMA that mentioned any upgrades to our existing floodplain regulatory things such as the levee in my district that we need to make some improvements to? And forgive me if this has already been sent out in email. I have not read a full, and maybe it was, or was it? I don't know.
No, and I was going to ask Darian to make sure that we got the updates, the 35 definitions and the full updates at some point when you're ready to publish that. It'd be great for us to be able to review that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Councilman, the updates that were issued by FEMA were specifically just to address the current flood maps and the firm panels.
You said the current, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the current what?
The the updated firm maps, firm panels, that's what those, these updates were for. So the update to the floodplain ordinance is to reflect those new firm panels that we're adopting.
And this may be a really incredibly stupid question, and I'm so sorry, because I leaned over to the city attorney, I just want to confirm. I know when we had the historic flood on August the 12th, we were directing people to TEMA for disaster relief, because FEMA does not do disaster relief anymore. Can someone give me clarity about FEMA's role in disaster relief? Because if we don't pass this, or, which I don't see any reason why we wouldn't, but you mentioned that if we did not enact some of the regulatory stuff from FEMA, that we would not receive disaster relief from FEMA, but I thought TEMA was now the new fiduciary agent for our state in doing that. Can someone give clarity to that? And I could be wrong.
So are you referring to the August 12th and why there wasn't financial?
Well,
Support.
there wasn't financial disaster relief funds from FEMA because they sent the fundings to the state. And so I guess my question again is that when there is disaster relief in compliance with what you're asking us to do, the funding won't come from the federal government anyway, it'll come from TEMA. Is that?
So let me be clear. Earlier when I spoke to not being, having our status removed as active to being non-compliant, that was in relation to the NFIP program, which we are a part of. That's the National Flood Insurance Program. So in order to receive funding, federal funding in case of a disaster, in the event of a disaster, we would have to have an active status in the National Flood Insurance Program. And to do that, we have to have an active floodplain ordinance that is reflective of the minimum standard guidelines.
In the event that federal funding was available, this would need to be in place. Answer my question.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Ken. I yield back, Councilman Burrs.
Okay. Let's see. Chairwoman Hill.
Thank you. Thanks for this information. I appreciate it. The language as it is recommended, I feel like is a little unclear. Specifically, I would just ask you to consider reformatting this and perhaps working with legal to reformat this. Phil, you might want to, I'll wait.
I'm sorry, Chairwoman Hill.
So Phil, I'm looking at this language, the staff recommended language here.
Yes.
And it does not, it's confusing. The following uses and activities may be allowed. Number one, no structures are allowed, versus bringing that outside of that and saying permitted uses, no structures are allowed. The following may be allowed. Recreational roads, public grading. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it needs some clarity.
Chairwoman Hill, just to kind of let you know why we did it that way, because we actually had it at the bottom and we changed it around a little bit, but we put that at the front so that we can be really clear that when we're talking about all of these things, because recreational uses, we want it, this is everything that's in the floodway. So this is a very flooded area. We don't want any structures in the floodway. So when we're talking about recreational uses, if we don't put that in the front up here, then recreational uses can get expanded to different structures. So we just want to be really clear that, and some of these other things, we're not allowing any structures, but we want river walks, we want boat launches, we want things that bring people to the water, and, you know, roads, bridges, all of those types of uses and development. However, structures are really dangerous in this area. So we want to just be very clear at the beginning, and being able to put that up at the top, it just really helps people understand that no structures, but yes, you can do this. So we're just trying to be very clear and transparent.
Yeah, I understand that you're trying to be clear. I don't think it is clear.
Okay.
I mean, I follow that. I think the sentence structure could be changed so that this portion is clear.
Yep.
Could also not be in the permitted uses in floodway, or I think sometimes in legal language, we have things in all caps and bold that potentially could be at the very beginning, or right after this sentence, but I think it's something that our legal team can work with you on. Also, I think that planning and zoning has had a lot of work. Like, when I read this, recreational uses, perhaps that's a callback to other things in our zoning code. It needs to be if it's not, because I don't immediately think river walks, et cetera, are things that I can build there. I think I can canoe in the floodway, so. You're probably tying it all together. This language is confusing.
Okay, thank you.
We'll work on it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is that all, Chairwoman?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Councilwoman Elliott.
I just want to highlight this. I want to ask this question. People who are now in these new floodplains, they're going to be required to get flood insurance. Is that correct? Or would it be wise for them to get flood insurance? Is that a better way of putting it?
So in my opinion, it's always wise to protect yourself. Flooding can happen in areas that aren't flood prone, that aren't in known flood areas, and flooding can happen in the most flood prone areas. In my opinion, I think it's beneficial to get that flood insurance, especially if you're not in a flood prone area, because you're going to get you should get a reduced premium. However, these maps, the changes within these maps won't reflect that everyone is in the floodplain or everybody that is. So if I may backtrack just a little bit, we have delineated 3 different districts for clarity on what embodies our floodplain: the floodway, the flood fringe, and the general floodplain. So within the flood fringe, you have the floodway, which is the 100-year or the 1% annual chance. That flood zone is regulated by the city of Chattanooga, is regulated by FEMA, TEMA. There are guidelines that are in place that gives higher standards or regulations to help reduce risk of flooding. Within that 500-year or 2% annual chance of flood zone, there aren't any. The city doesn't impose any regulations. We don't enforce regulations within the 100-year or 500-year flood zone. So with that, for insurance purposes, I can't really articulate whether or not an insurance company is going to say, hey, insurance is needed or required for this property because it sits within the 500-year as opposed to the 100-year.
Are these maps going to be made available?
They already are made available.
If you can send us the link for the maps, that would be helpful. I see at least one press outlet, and anybody else watching, I hope this gets out, and I'll do my due diligence to push this. I encourage everybody to connect with your insurance providers to see if you're going to need to get flood insurance. I would hate for another national disaster to happen like we had a couple months ago, and you find yourself not being covered. Legally, we can't tell you what to do, or Phil would probably jump across this dais and cut my mic. Legally, we can't tell you what to do, but I do implore everybody to do their due diligence if you're a homeowner to make sure you have the proper coverage, especially with these maps changing. I don't know what it means. I do appreciate you all for presenting. I will probably have more questions at some other point. I didn't think floodplains would be as complex as it is, but I will need to kind of sit with this, and I'll probably have some questions, but thank you all for taking the time to come speak with us.
And I'd like to highlight that the city being an active member of the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, allows residents to qualify for federally backed insurance policies. So those policies are offered at a lower rate or a discounted rate than private insurance companies. So the importance of us maintaining our status as active is highly beneficial and highly crucial for residences.
I see no other lights. Is that all?
I'm great, Madam Chair.
Okay. Darian, Ken, Jinx, thank you for all of your work on this. Darian, if you will send the information to Nicole so she can distribute it to all of us. And then is the Planning Commission are we approving this on Monday, next Monday?
No, so it's already been moved through Planning Commission.
Okay.
And so it will come to you guys on November 18th.
Great,
And so
great,
what we
okay.
will do, we will work on this language beforehand to address Councilwoman Hill's suggestion. And so that it'll be the same policy, but just slightly.
Cleaned up language?
Yeah.
Okay, so council, it sounds like we'll have time to review it before the November 18th meeting. So as soon as Darian gets that to Nicole, and that's out to you, then be prepared to ask your questions on the 18th.
Additionally, just really quickly, we have some handouts that we sent, or that we were giving out yesterday. We're going to also attach that to our email to get forwarded on to you. Please, share those with your constituents. Just, we want to get the word out there as much as possible.
Thank you so much. I see no other lights. Any other questions, council? All right. Chairwoman Hill, I understand do we have an attorney-client meeting? Okay. You would like to recess until 5:40? Okay, we will recess until 5:40.
Okay, we are back in session. I would like to make a quick announcement that the holidays are coming up, as you all know, and we have discussed it amongst council leadership, and the council will not be meeting on November 25th in observance of Thanksgiving. We will also not be meeting on December 23rd or December 30th. As well as next week.
Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk, will you please read Resolution A?
A resolution to erect a commemorative name sign renaming Cannon Avenue to Lehman Pierce Avenue in honor of the late Lehman Pierce.
Council, we have an item. Can I get a motion? Thank you. We have a motion on the floor with a proper second. Do we have any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, I would like to take our economic development items B, C, D, and E as a package, please.
Item B, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic Development to enter into a second agreement to exercise option to renew with Hamilton County, Tennessee Board of Education in substantially the form attached for the use of tax parcel numbers 136LM002, 136LM005, and 136LM006 for the continued operation of the Avondale Head Start, Early Head Start program at 2302 Ocoee Street for an additional term of 1 year through December 31, 2026 for the amount of $1. Item C, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic Development to enter into a second agreement to exercise option to renew with the Hamilton County, Tennessee Board of Education in substantially the form attached for the use of a portion of tax parcel number 168IC032 for the continued operation of the Cedar Hill Head Start, Early Head Start program at 4701 Divine Avenue for an additional term of 1 year through December 31, 2026 for the amount of $1. Item D, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic Development to enter into a second agreement to exercise option to renew with Hamilton County, Tennessee Board of Education in substantially the form attached for the use of a portion of tax parcel number 066MD014 for the continued operation of the Daisy Head Start, Early Head Start program at 9517 West Ridge Trail Road in Soddy Daisy, Tennessee for an additional term of 1 year through December 31, 2026 for the amount of $1. Item E, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic Development to execute quitclaim deeds for the conveyance of 16 certain or certain combinations of parcels in substantially the form attached to the approved highest bidders on properties of the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County as acquired through previous delinquent tax sales.
Second.
Thank you. Council, we have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Do I have any questions or comments? If so, please hit your light. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're going to take information technology resolutions F and G as a package, please, Madam Clerk.
Item F, a resolution authorizing the chief information officer to enter into a 3-year blanket contract via sole source with Thomson Reuters West for Clear Law Enforcement Plus and Clear ProFlex LPR software applications to be used by the Chattanooga Police Department for interface access to be used by the, I'm sorry, let me start that over again. A resolution authorizing Chief Information Officer to enter into a 3-year blanket contract via sole source with Thomson Reuters West for Clear Law Enforcement Plus and Clear ProFlex LPR software application to be used by the Chattanooga Police Department for interface access to proprietary proprietary, yes, secure web-based investigative public records for an amount not to exceed $75,000 per year with a 3-year term in the amount of $225,000. Item G, a resolution authorizing the Chief Information Officer to renew Vector Solutions, formerly Target Solutions Learning LLC, blanket agreement 556370 for a 5-year term with an annual spend limit not to exceed $80,000, $400,000 for the complete term, which annual renewal provides support, maintenance, and premier subscription fees for an educational training product used by the Chattanooga Fire Department and the Moccasin Bend Environmental Center.
Second.
Council, we have a motion on the floor to approve with the proper second. Do we have any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item H.
A resolution confirming Mayor Kelly's appointment of Robin Derryberry to the Carter Street Corporation Board for a term beginning on November 5, 2025, and ending on November 4, 2029.
Thank you, council. We have a motion on the floor to approve with the proper second. Do we have any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and I believe that I see Robin out there. Robin, thank you very much for your service. Item I, please.
A resolution authorizing and directing the clerk of the council to advertise for public hearing on December 9, 2025 for the de-annexation of certain property owned by Versailles Land and Development Company, LLC, for the tenant Chick-fil-A restaurant located at 8883 Old Lee Highway within the city of Chattanooga in Hamilton County, Tennessee, which is currently referenced as tax map number 131082.18, more fully described in the attached map.
Thank you. Council, this is specifically to advertise for a public hearing. Can I get a motion? Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to approve with the proper second. Do we have any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Parks and Outdoors, let's take items J, K, and L as a package, please.
Item J, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Parks and Outdoors to apply for and, if awarded, accept the Healthy and Sustainable Communities Grant from the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the American Beverage Association to expand the Every Kid Outdoor Program in the amount of $200,000. Item K, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Parks and Outdoors to apply for and, if awarded, accept a Youth Sports Access NRPA Musco Lighting Grant for the in-kind donation and installation of a mini pitch system with lighting at East Lake Community Center Park valued at $100,000 and to provide $20,000 for the activation of the infrastructure. Item L, a resolution authorizing the waiver for park rental fees for the Zach Mercier Foundation in support of the Not My Child 5K Run Walk for November 15, 2025 for the total amount of $1,000, which includes a $500 rental fee for the Chattanooga Green and a $500 rental fee for Ross's Landing with a deposit in the amount of $1,000. Responsibility of the applicant for the duration of the event to include setup and breakdown.
Second.
Thank you, council. We have a motion on the floor to approve with the proper second. Hit your light if you've got any questions or comments. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public Works, let's do items M through R as a package, please.
Item M, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute a memorandum of agreement between the City of Chattanooga, Norfolk Southern Railway Company, Chattanooga MF Joint Venture LLC, and Chattanooga 706 Land Company LLC regarding the closure of two private at-grade crossings, 73467W and 73694H, and the installation of two public at-grade crossings, 946998L and 947002G for the construction of 2 residential and mixed-use communities at 702, 706, and 17 Manufacturers Road in order to provide full public access to such communities to and from the Manufacturers Road and Paper Mill Road public rights-of-way. Item N, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute an agreement between the City of Chattanooga MF Joint Venture LLC and Chattanooga 706 Land Company LLC, detailing costs and responsibility obligations of the parties for the closure of 2 private at-grade crossings, 73467W and 736945H, and the installation of 2 public at-grade crossings, 946998L and 947002G for the construction of 2 residential and mixed-use communities at 702, 706, and 710 Manufacturers Road in order to provide full public access to such communities to and from the Manufacturers Road and Paper Mill Road public rights-of-way subject to the approval of the agreement language by the city attorney. Item O, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve change order number 1 to contract number 022001 Chattanooga Skate Park with Roberts LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee for the construction of the original bid scope of work and restoring scope eliminated during value engineering for an increased amount of $1,272,642.82 for a revised contract amount of $2,272,477.80 with a new contingency in the amount of $107,000 for a revised total amount of $2,379,477.80. Item P, a resolution authorizing the appointment of Tom Dalzett as a special police officer unarmed for the City of Chattanooga Department of Public Works LDO Code Division to perform duties expressly limited to the performance of duties in his position as demolition abatement specialist. Item Q, a resolution authorizing the appointment of Mark Johnson as a special police officer unarmed for the City of Chattanooga Department of Public Works LDO Code Division to perform duties expressly limited to the performance of duties in his position as Code Enforcement Inspector. Item R, a resolution authorizing the appointment of Aaron Levy as a special police officer unarmed for the City of Chattanooga Department of Public Works LDO Code Division to perform duties expressly limited to the performance of duties in his position as Code Enforcement Inspector 1.
You are a pro, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much.
Sometimes.
Councilman Henderson.
Move approval of items 9M through R.
Thank you. Council, we have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Do we have any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item S, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the wastewater department to award contract number W2002001 23rd Street Pump Station Improvements Project to Dugan and Myers Industrial LLC of Cincinnati, Ohio for pump station improvements at 23rd Street Pump Station in the amount of $11,584,000 with a contingency in the amount of $1,158,400 for a total amount of $12,742,400.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Council, do we have any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We do not have any purchases to review tonight, Council. And I do see that we have past Councilman Manny Rico in the audience with us tonight. Thank you for joining us, sir. Glad to have you here. You know just what it is, so thank you very much. All right, we're going to move into committee reports. Councilman Elliott.
I promise this was the iPad. It wasn't me. We had an Economic Development Committee meeting today where we discussed updates along regarding the TIF public hearing at the IDB meeting. Sharita was able to present a update regarding the neighborhood corridors initiatives. And we heard from RiverCity regarding their retail corridor and facade improvements and their initiatives for retail storefronts in the downtown area. We will have another Economic Development Committee meeting on November 18th, where we'll be able to discuss the sales tax initiative that pertains to the Northgate TIF. So that'll be an opportunity for folks who have questions more to lean in there. And outside of that, no more. One other report. I also introduced 2 resolutions that we'll be visiting on the 18th regarding protecting folks from water shutoffs that pertain to sewer fees, not stormwater fees, but sewer fees from the city, and also a resolution encouraging EPB to see what they can do to protect Chattanoogans as well until SNAP benefits are funded or the government, federal government opens back up.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Dotley.
No report.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a Planning and Zoning Committee meeting today, and thank you, Karen Rennick, as always, for presenting the cases to us, which will be heard on November 18th. We also heard from our floodplain team, Darian Gilkerson and her team, who have been working on updating the floodplain guidelines to make sure that they're in compliance. Council members, Darian did provide some brochures and a couple flyers for your mailboxes. And then if you haven't already received an email with the information, you should be getting it shortly so you can share that information with your district. And that's all.
Thank you very much. Councilman Henderson. Councilman Davis.
No committee report, but I am looking forward at our next meeting on the 18th to giving a presentation for you all about our city delegation's recent trip to China. So excited to share what we learned and experienced over there. And then also on November 19th, related to the TIF project, the Friends of Hickson Community Group will be having a meeting to discuss that project. I know we heard some good positive feedback from the public about the project at the IDB meeting yesterday, and I expect there will be more positive feedback at that meeting, so I would just encourage you all to attend.
And what time is that meeting?
It's from 8 till 9 on November 19th.
Thank you very much. Councilman Clark?
Madam Chair, I don't have a committee report, but I'd like to give a kudos.
Hit your light.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They'll be able to hear your kudos.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Hill. I don't have a committee report for community development, but I would like to give a kudos to an administrator who is doing some amazing community development work in my district, and that is April Firth, who is our Parks and Outdoors Administrator. I remember when you arrived, there were so many questions about your arrival, and I just want to say the work that you have done with the deferred maintenance list and what was allocated for the mayor's office and how you are expediting that. You're building pavilions in my district and Lake Hills and Murray Hills, and I just really appreciate the work that you're doing to develop our communities through Parks and Outdoors. And I appreciate your work ethic and how you've hit the ground running and how you are becoming a member of the Chattanooga Way community. So thank you, April, for your amazing work in community development through Parks and Outdoors. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Vice Chairwoman.
I don't have a report, but I do want to say
You hit your light?
thank you. I want to say thank you to a group of the Great District 8 ladies that purchased me a purse. And it actually works.
Pretty awesome.
So I want to say thank you so much. Yes. Appreciate the love.
Fantastic. Well, I will just add one more round of thank yous. Thank you so much, Vice Chairwoman, for keeping the ship headed in the right direction. Everything went so great while you were gone, and I appreciate you. What?
Can I say this?
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay. You're still on.
So, and thank you to Madam Chair. This is my gift that she brought me back, and I've got $5 if anyone can tell me what you think the symbol means. And so who would think? Anybody? Yeah. Okay. Happiness.
It's happiness.
Yeah. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, Jeff and I didn't have a worry in the world about this council while we were gone, so we really appreciate it. I especially appreciate it. So we have now reached the point in our meeting where we are happy to recognize persons who are here who wish to address the council. If you are here and would like to address the council, please go ahead and line up behind the podium and listen while our attorney reads the rules.
Yes. At the end of each council business meeting, the chair will recognize members of the public who wish to address the council, and here's your rules. Each speaker wishing to address the council can only be recognized at the microphone up front for that purpose. Can't have more than 3 minutes to speak, and you can address the council only upon matters within their legislative and quasi-judicial authority and not on matters which are not under their authority or regulated by other governmental bodies or agencies. Do not engage in any vulgar or obscene language or use the floor to personally attack or to personally denigrate others, and address the council as a whole and not make comments directed towards individual council members. And lastly, do not engage in disorderly conduct or disrupting a public meeting, which is prohibited by Tennessee law, and someone commits that offense if a person substantially obstructs or interferes with the meeting by physical action or verbal utterance with the intent to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting or gathering. Having stated those rules, please go ahead, sir, and give your name.
Thank you. Hadrian Turner. So good evening, councilors. I wanted to introduce myself today. My name's Hadrian Turner. I live right outside the city, but I'm one of the co-founders of Save Enterprise South Nature Park, along with my partner, Melissa Ray, and 2 others. We know the discussion about the land swap at Enterprise South is basically new to everyone, but we know how important it is to start these conversations early and have them often. We hope to serve as a resource to all of you as the issue evolves. We are a budding local community organization that started the petition that you've no doubt already seen. We now have over 9,000 signatures in under a month. Clearly, overwhelmingly, Enterprise South Nature Park is a beloved recreational and community resource and wildlife refuge that should be preserved in its current state for future generations. Personally, I'm a conservation professional with the Oconee River Land Trust, and our family bikes, hikes, and walks at Enterprise South several times a week. At only 10 minutes away, it's been such a gift for a family with 2 young children who already love nature. Enterprise South Nature Park is the county's largest park, and a big reason that the park feels the way that it does is thanks to its size and its ecology. The tract that has been identified as unused and underutilized is in fact home to countless species of flora and fauna, as well as the celebrated Atlas Trail. I recently had the pleasure of talking with a mountain biker who drove all the way from Knoxville to ride the Atlas Trail, and he referred to it as the premier park in Chattanooga. While the county's plan is allegedly still in its infancy, any maps that have been shared publicly all include the Atlas Trail and children-focused Sunshine Trail in the affected zone. That tract of land also acts as an important buffer to the rest of the park from sound, light, and other types of pollution along I-75. Citizens are understandably against lifting a forever deed restriction at Enterprise South Nature Park and losing their public parkland to private industry and road construction. It's exactly the kind of response one would hope to see from residents of North America's first national park city. We applaud Mayor Womp's administration in recognizing that the community also cares about McDonald Farm and for their intention to protect it, but it does not have to come at the cost of our county's largest and only nature park, nor should it. I'm very familiar with legal mechanisms for protecting land, and there is no actual requirement for a restricted deed swap to protect McDonald Farm. There are other avenues to conserving McDonald Farm if the county is committed to doing so. While we are glad to see the county is collecting public comment, there have been no further updates to the community since the initial press conference, including maps, acreages, and otherwise. Our organization doesn't represent just one perspective. We are not strictly impacted homeowners. We are not simply bleeding heart environmentalists, nor are we anti-development or anti-growth. We are here to represent the park. We represent the arguments for keeping this already protected land protected in perpetuity for our community and for the generations that will follow us. Thank you for your time. We would love the opportunity to speak with you more.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Anna Galladay, District 8. First, thank you, Councilman Elliott, for the 2 resolutions you're proposing on the 18th. Your continued support of those on the edges doesn't go unnoticed. Continuing in that vein, as of January 2025, the 11-county Southeast Tennessee region saw a 12% increase in homelessness. And our current shelter capacity is at 22% of the current need. Because homelessness is considered a lagging indicator of economic distress, the full impact of recent economic shifts, such as high inflation, rising rent prices, and the government shutdown, will continue to manifest this problem far into 2026. For lack of a more simplistic clarion call, this will get significantly worse before it gets better. Here's my curiosity. At what point do we, as a collective government, legislative and executive, begin to seriously work together to improve these conditions? Some of you might not know or have visibility to the homeless challenges in your neighborhoods and what they are facing. But I agree wholeheartedly with Dr. Maya Angelou. You do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, you do better. What is the city's plan for supportive housing? What does emergency and temporary shelter look like for those who are on our streets? Right now, it looks like a capacity of 22% of the current need. While transitional and permanent housing is also needed as the next step, currently affordable and available houses exist for only 1 of 4 low-income renter households. And I recognize that the city and some of you on this dais are working to identify how this next step in the process comes to fruition. Yes, it is vital that there is somewhere for folks to go post-shelter life. But our problem as a city is that we don't have a solution in between the streets and that transitional housing. There is no supportive housing option. And simply overlooking this glaring and necessary gap in the process is not only heartbreaking, but as winter comes, it will be death-inducing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Stephen Russell. I'm a resident of District 3 and a City of Chattanooga worker in the wastewater department. I'm also a proud member of SEIU Local 205. I want to speak to City Council today about the efforts by groups like Tennessee for All to abolish the grocery tax, and also the fight for a higher wages and higher standard of living for workers in Chattanooga. Tennessee is one of either 11 or 13 states with a grocery tax, and out of those, Tennessee is the highest grocery tax rate. With the cost of living skyrocketing for everything, including food, and people finding it more and more difficult to make ends meet, I'm asking City Council to contact anyone they know in the state legislature to tell them Chattanoogans want the state to abolish the grocery tax. Regarding wages and a higher standard of living, in 2021, the city passed a budget funding a $15 per hour minimum wage. I want to thank Mayor Kelly and the current members of City Council who were there to pass that budget. However, that was several years ago, and the city was years behind many cities throughout the country. The current minimum wage at the city is $16 and some change per hour, and it's still not a living wage. Last week, Mayor Kelly was asked about the strike authorization of UAW workers at Volkswagen. His comment was, "We just worked really, really hard just to get a raise for our police and firefighters. That is far below what VW has offered its workers." Kelly said, "So again, we try to stay out of those labor disputes, but obviously for the good of Chattanooga, I hope they wrap it up soon." I disagree with Mayor Kelly that he is being neutral when making statements like that, but I do agree with the mayor that UAW should not be asking for so much more than city workers make. That is why it's time to call on the city to increase its minimum wage to $25 per hour, and we are calling it the Drive for 25. It's time that companies stop trying to get away with paying workers as little as possible, and that workers demand the best standard of living possible and negotiate from there. SEIU has a slogan, "When we fight, we win." I'm asking City Council members and the mayor to not remain neutral and to fight for the workers so we can win the best standard of living possible. I stand in solidarity with workers at the city and my UAW brothers and sisters to continue the fight for a better life for us and our families. We need to abolish the grocery tax, and we need the Drive for 25. When we fight, we win. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak to the council? Council, I'm seeing none. Can I get a motion to? Thank you. I have a motion to adjourn and a proper second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Read your mind. They read your mind.
They did.
Yes, it was a fabulous evening.
Tired.